28 seconds. Straight ahead was a vehicle, a moving target that the driver could see the entire time. Even as dusk was approaching, there was clear visibility straight ahead, with a cart moving from approximately this point, 250 feet ahead. It was rolling forward, being pulled by a horse, and the driver was not noticing or paying attention. And in 28 seconds, this was a fatal accident.
Hello, I'm Bryan Selby, and I am the one who was in the cart with Hannah and my dad when we got struck by Kirk Overcash coming behind us. It was completely light out. You could very easily see. There was no car in front of him, and you could see him for a long time coming towards us. He did not slow down even when he struck the cart. He was still going full speed.
Hello, my name is Laura Camperman. I was driving, going from my house to the bank, and I came to about this point here in the road. This is where I saw Brian and the girls coming towards me on the carriage. The lighting conditions were fine. I could clearly see them. And little did I know that a couple of minutes later he would have that fatal accident. And I was going to be one of their last friends to see him.
Hi, my name is Rick Goggin, and today is the 19th of February, 2016. My wife Lori and I were at our home in Wilkesboro, which is just a couple of miles from here, and our pager went off. We're both members of the Moravian Falls Fire Department. Pager went off and looked at it, and it was 10 minutes of 6. We remember that vividly because my wife had a loaf of bread that was ready to come out of the oven at 6. So she looked and she said, well, 10 minutes, we'll chance it, pull it. And as soon as we heard the page come out, the audio was that it was a motor vehicle accident versus horse and buggy. And Lori and I looked at each other and knew that it had to be Brian or a member of Brian's family because we've known him for years. I'm a musician and I've played music with Brian for a long time. And anyway, we dropped what we were doing and ran, got in the car, and got there as quick as we could. When we got there, our first task assigned by the chief on scene was that we had to hunt for the horse, because the horse had gone off into a field, so they thought. And I remember looking, realizing that it wasn't quite dark yet, and matter of fact, I could see that the back of the field was getting a little harder to see. So we ran back to the vehicle and got flashlights because we knew before long we would need them. But when we first got there, we could see everything quite well without any. It was really dusk. It wasn't dark.
Kimi Hamby.
Thank you, sir. Do you believe that the accident happened before dark?
I think it was about this time of day, low limited light.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. When we got the page, it was still light.
I remember the day very well. I usually knocked off work around about 5:15, 5:20. I'd be back here at the house. And one of the first things I like to do normally after a day is just to kind of wander around my yard and unwind a little bit. And I remember my daughter Beatrice coming around the corner of the house and saying, Dad, it's Bryan on the phone. She needs to talk to you. So I wrote my cell phone back out. I took the call and she said, can you come? We've had an accident with a cart. We've been hit. Dad's injured, and they've called the ambulance. Can you come? And the problem was that my wife had just left the house with our only car to go to the shops and to do some banking. And so I didn't have a car to get to the scene of the accident. So the first thing I did was to run over to my neighbor, Paul Vimont.
Well, Harold came and knocked on my door and said there had been an accident. And then I was outside with Harold, and he was discussing what happened just down the road on Moravian Falls Road. And it was dusk, but it was not dark yet. And took several minutes and talking and deciding what to do, and then I ended up taking Harold down to the accident site. And by the time we got down there, it was almost dark, but not quite. But when we were talking out here, it was not dark yet.
Paul and I kind of, spent some time there at the scene of the accident. He took me back to the house here.
So by the time we left, it was dark.
It was very natural for Brianna to give me, I won't say I would have been the first person she called. She probably tried to call her mom or somebody, but she would have called me closely after that.
What time did your records say that you're from?
I'm still looking at my phone records. There are 2 phone calls that I got and then that I received, and one of them was 5:35, and I believe that's the one that was the call from Brianna. That one says number unavailable, and I don't know why. And we're going to look at the AT&T, talking to AT&T why. To Verizon. I'm with Verizon. We're going to talk to Verizon and ask them under what conditions number is unavailable. But from there on, all the other numbers were outgoing calls, and I recognize exactly who to, and they were all people that I called to ask them to pray because something serious had happened, and that they would all be praying for life for Bryan, and that he would live and not die. And so I was calling people like Gail Maiden and people I knew who would pray. And so I know on my phone records all those were outgoing calls, and from there on it's virtually non-stop phone calls out and in. Records indicate very well and confirm that what I'm saying is accurate. At what time of the day? I've looked since that day. Sunset, according to official meteorological data that's available, sunset that day was at 5:25, and I believe that obviously I arrived sometime after the accident. Because Bryan had already been picked up by the ambulance, had already been taken away from the scene of the accident. So by the time I got there, the accident had happened quite some time before that. And yet when I got the call from Brianna, it was still before at dusk, if you want to call it that, or just after sunset, but still plenty of daylight. And so I believe that the accident happened probably right at sunset. And I therefore find it very difficult to believe that the police records show that the accident happened at 5:53, which is 28 minutes after sunset. If you measure 28 minutes after sunset at the time of the year that it happened, you're looking at a time that is absolutely pitch black. 28 minutes after any sunset is usually pitch black. And so I thoroughly dispute the official time given.
The only legal requirement for a horse-drawn cart is the orange triangle. Added 2 red reflectors, which was the case with Bryan's cart. It was very similar to this one. However, it only had 2 wheels, not 4 wheels, and the seat was a little wider. Very similar otherwise. It's to be pulled by 1 horse, which was the case at the time. It has a hitch for 1 horse, and a seat that was carrying 3 Selby, Bryan, Brianna, and Hannah.